Good day. So excited to have the privilege and the honor of speaking to you. I should firstly thank the Lord for this opportunity and also Pastor Swani, as well as the current leadership of Lifeline community. The subject that I've been given speaks of stretching, and if I remember correctly, what Pastor Swani asked me to do was to center on Isaiah 54 verses 1 to 4, and I'll try to stick to what is in there, especially the portion that talks about strengthening your pegs. And what I would like to do as I speak to you is firstly to tell you a little bit about myself, that I have now been married for 28 years. Of course, married to one wife, a beautiful woman by the name of Felicitas. We've got 2 boys and very talented boys. But let's stick to what I'm supposed to speak to you about, which is couples issues. In the 28 years that I've been married, we have lived all these 28 years in Goshen. That means even though we were in Egypt, but the things that affected the Egyptians did not affect the children of Israel in Goshen. So we have created our house, we have created our partnership on the principles of Goshen. I'm not going to deal with what Goshen means. That would be a subject of another day. But just to say that in 28 years, we've never, not one day, have exchanged words, raised volume, shouted at each other. Yes, we have had our disagreements, no question about that, but we have learned to handle those agreements or disagreements in a way that did not do away with the phase or the mood. So we have maintained our honeymoon up until this day. The days of Goshen or staying in Goshen are a choice. You make a choice how to deal with issues so that even though issues arise, it does not shake you from your position of being in Goshen. That's the approach that I'm taking. So I'll deal, unfortunately, my wife traveled. She's now in South Africa, and here I am in France. I just spoken to her a moment ago. She's on duty, and I did ask her if she wanted to present something, and she told me she's very busy. She's doing training and she's not able. So we have to, on that account, apologize for not having my wife around. Next time we'll do our best for her to be there, if there will be that next time. So what I would like to do with you this morning is, of course, I can only speak from a viewpoint of a husband. So let me address first the husbands as we deal with what it means to be a godly husband. And you'll see how it will connect with the element of stretching ourselves as couples. So here are some nuggets that I want to give concerning a godly husband. Number one, this godly husband has to pursue God. If you are going to find yourself building Goshen as your location, your prime location, your default location, then you have to be a pursuer first of God. You see, God placed Adam in the garden and gave him instructions. And before a husband can lead his wife as well as lead his family, he has to first follow God and to follow God's instructions. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse number 3, but I want you to understand that Christ is the head of every man, and the man is the head of the woman, and God is the head of Christ. So a husband cannot be a head before he fully submits his head or himself to his head, who is Jesus Christ. I like the story that we read in the book of Genesis, where God spoke to the ground and the ground produced plants. Then God spoke to the water and the water produced fish. Then God spoke to himself, and then there was the production of mankind. And the theory that we see here is that plants come out of the ground, and because they come out of the ground, they need the ground as its source for it to continue to live. Fish need water, which is its source for it to live, and man needs God for that man to live. So as a husband, your primary role is to pursue Jesus, who is your source. You need to recognize God as your need. You need to have him as the first amongst what you need. So you need to seek to follow this Jesus and his words in all that you do. The second one, a husband needs to be a provider. You see, God puts Adam in the garden not only to experience God's presence, but also to tend and to keep that garden. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse number 8, but if anyone does not provide for his own, and I would like to say his own family, especially those of his household, he has denied the faith, and he is worse than an unbeliever. So you see, God placed the responsibility of providing to a husband. Let me deal with the third one. You will see how all this will meet when we speak about the stretching, which is part of Isaiah 54. Genesis chapter number 2 and verse 24 speaks about, for this reason a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the third aspect that I'm dealing with here is that the husband, the man, needs to be proactive. Scripture places the initiative of leaving on the man and not the woman. One of the difficulties of every man is being passive. And passivity is the acceptance of what happens without active response or producing resistance to what is already there. So one of the activities given to man as his role in being proactive is to initiate things. So whether you are married, which I believe you are, or I'm not so sure who else is there, whether you have serious people courting, then remember that initiating stuff is your portion. You've got to initiate conversations. You've got to initiate going on dates. You've got to initiate in all these things. Initiate on setting goals. Initiate on creating plans. Don't just be good at initiating for sex. Let's put it that way. If this is a problem in you to initiate things, then ask God to give you divine instructions from His Word and for Him to put impressions on you on how to initiate. Spend time with God, and out of those meetings with God, God will impress something on your heart that will help you plan for things in your family. The next thing that I want us to know, that for there to be life in Goshen that is prolonged, you've got to become, as a husband, the pastor of your household. You see, we do understand and know that Eve was deceived by the serpent. Adam was never deceived by the serpent. It was a choice that Adam made. And when Adam decided to disobey God, God came to Adam and asked him what had happened. Eve was never in the picture when God had given Adam the instructions. But God expected Adam to pass on the same instructions to his wife. God expects the husband to be the pastor, to be the spiritual leader in his household. So in this case, lead in that family devotions. You've got to lead. If there is a table that is established in your household, you lead that table. Pray with your family. Teach your family the ways of God. You become the pastor of your house by example and by initiating godly things. The next thing that I want to deal with is, as a husband, walk in purity. In Job chapter 31 and verse number 1, this is what it says. I have made a covenant with my eyes. How then would I gaze at a virgin? And this has to refer to staring, looking at something. But it's not just looking at something, but you are looking with lust. You are looking with lust at a young woman. This is what the portion of scripture is talking about. You see, men get aroused, by now you know, by what they see. So there is a need to put a guard on your eyes. We need to set boundaries. We need to set perimeters with our eyes. Otherwise, what we see will cause us to fall. We need to protect our eyes, which are the windows to our souls. We need also to protect our hearts from believing lies that I made a mistake by marrying this woman. We do that by not allowing flirtatious things. A husband must protect his marriage by keeping his heart pure. Avoid hanging out with the opposite sex alone. Avoid talking to someone of the opposite sex about your personal lives or your personal life. Control your eyes. Keep watering your own grass. Keep the fire in the fireplace. Keep dating your mate. And I'll deal with this in greater detail much later. If there is courting, then court your spouse. keep on courting your spouse. There will be no marital cases that go to court. But when you don't court your wife, definitely, it's a matter of time. You'll find yourself and your wife in court. To avoid having an affair or an emotional affair, keep on investing in your marriage. Pursue your wife and invest in your marriage. Become someone that is working at this at all times. The sixth element, a husband needs to be perceptive. What do I mean by this? He should study his wife. He should perceive the wife's needs, the wife's desires, the wife's dreams, and even the wife's fears. As a husband needs to become a student of his wife. Let me draw your attention to 1 Peter chapter number 3 and verse number 7. This is what it says. You husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of God, so that your prayers will not be hindered. Now, my attention that I want to draw you to, I want to draw your attention to that word understanding. This word is gnosis in the Greek, and it means a seeking to know. It means an inquiry. And listen to this, it also means an investigation. Now, let's look at the dictionary meaning of gnosis. By definition, this word, it says it means knowledge, it means doctrine, and it means wisdom. Gnosis comes from a word which is gnosko, meaning knowing, which is an act. And by implication, it is an act of acquiring knowledge. So this word gnosis is translated as knowledge, or, watch this, as a science. So perceiving